A very good afternoon to you. I'm Lisa Lord with the CBC News at noon. An Air Canada plane destined for Toronto was forced to return to the island yesterday evening after a fire indicator went off shortly after takeoff from the Grantley Adams International Airport. The plane was at the time carrying about 200 passengers. Response teams were on standby as the plane returned to make an emergency landing, and residents in neighboring districts expressed alarm at the low-flying plane. Air Canada in a statement said that flight AC 967 landed normally and safely without incident. Air Canada says the aircraft has been inspected and there was no fire. The Barbados Bar Association is calling on authorities on the island to do all in their power to ensure that the judicial system does not fall behind the rest of the Caribbean. President Tariq Khan says the island has been a judicial leader in this regard for many decades. He's charging that some Eastern Caribbean countries that have signed on to the Caribbean Court of Justice are moving ahead of Barbados, whose judicial system is facing a litany of problems. Mr. Khan was speaking at a news conference at the bar's headquarters yesterday.
Our fear is that as a jurisdiction which led the Caribbean, we will get left behind because we have not invested in our justice system and invested in those people who can make it better. That is a genuine fear. It's a fear that's felt amongst all the professionals of the Barbados Bar Association. We want to work to make it better, but we need to be heard and we need to be part of the system that makes the changes.
Mr. Khan says the court system is still beset with a backlog of thousands of cases, and the bar believes that an alternative disputes mechanism could help to erase this workload. But he says they want to see a mechanism enshrined in the rules of the High Court for mediation.
We've never rejected that as an alternative. What we have concerned ourselves with is that it is enshrined within the rules. At the moment, the rules as they operate make some passing reference to mediation, but they don't actually provide a mechanism which is recognized by the courts as part of the whole action or pre-action prior to litigation. We have a number of very senior lawyers who have invested an incredible amount of time in trying to build a protocol with the courts and with the registration department so that this becomes part of the landscape before somebody gets involved headlong into litigation.
A value-added tax rate of 25% and a personal income tax rate of over 50%. That's what visiting governor of Denmark's central bank, Per Callesen, says they pay, but he also says it balances itself out in critical services. He made the comment during a forum hosted by the Central Bank of Barbados on the topic, experiences with fixed exchange rates and economic performance in small European economies. The event was held at the Grand Salle of the Tom Adams Financial Center and attended by a number of senior members of the local business community.
But you have to account for the fact that on the other hand, we have free health care, there are free provision of childcare, where you have to pay 30% of the costs. There are free provision of care for elderly people in need. You have free education all over the place. So, I mean, there's a lot of burdens taken off people's shoulders in that respect.
Mr. Callesen says the quality of public services must therefore be very high.
When public services are delivered, it's extremely important that it's high quality, it's efficient. I do personally believe that there are some major benefits by offering childcare, care for the elderly. Otherwise, those people will have to be taken care of inside the families, which will cut back labor force participation, not least among women. So whether that is actually costly or not, I think remains to be disputed. But no, they benefit. You ask the Dane on the street, no, they know they pay high taxes. They don't love it. They would like to pay less, but they also, I think, appreciate mainly that they do get something in return.
The Central Bank of Barbados does not seek to interfere in legitimate foreign exchange flows required by companies to do business outside of the island. This is according to Dr. Dilal Worrell, Governor of the Central Bank of Barbados. He made the comment while responding to a question at that economic forum hosted by the bank.
I think there's a misperception that the Central Bank of Barbados can actually control the flows of finance in and out of Barbados. That's not true. We have always realized that we cannot control the flows in and out. What we can do is create a situation where there is predictability in the flows. So that if you have a legitimate commitment for foreign exchange payments, then those are always going to be, irrespective if they're debt payments, if they're principal repayments, if they're capital gains, those are always going to be approved.
And Dr. Worrell says the bank follows a straightforward process.
So we are never going to control that and say, you can't do it. What we do is that we invigilate the system and we require certain kinds of payments, particularly capital payments and financial payments, that we require you to check with us first, that you have all your documentation in order and that you do have a legitimate reason for those payments and that you are not purely speculating against our currency.
We'll be back after the break with regional and international stories.
Love can withstand any test, but you know this. Because before it's tested, it could be anything. It could be infatuation, it could be intense like, it could even be a fling. But when it's tested, then you know it's the real thing.